Comic Book Savant, episode 318.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't...
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, we're all about Rouge One, a Star Wars story. So if you haven't had a chance to see the movie yet, definitely want to pause the podcast, see the movie, then come back, because this is going to be a spoiler-filled review, and I don't want to ruin the movie for anyone that hasn't seen it yet. So again, this is your last warning before we launch into everything else. If you haven't seen Rouge One, a Star Wars story, stop the podcast now, put it to the side, watch the movie, then come back, because I don't want to ruin it for you. But before we get into the review, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. If you enjoy this show and you're looking for more comic book related podcasts, there are tons of them out there. One of the best jumping off points or portal is the Comics Podcast Network. You can find it over at comicspodcast.com. There are literally hundreds of different podcasts there. If you're looking for publisher-themed shows, team-related shows, individual character-themed podcasts, you can find it all there. They have a good directory, and again, it's growing and growing, by the week, by the day even. So it's a good jumping-off point. So if you have a moment, check out comicspodcast.com to see the Comics Podcast Network. And last but not least, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsor of the show, which is InStockTrades.com. If you have a moment, stop by the site. It's one of the best places that you're going to go on the internet to find collected editions when it comes to comic books. Any bound collected editions, they have a humongous selection of trade paperbacks, Marvel Masterworks, Omnibus, Absolute editions, you name it. They have some of the best selections around. And as always, if you place an order $50 or more, you get free shipping. If you're a U.S. customer, if you're an international customer, you still get the savings. You just don't get the free shipping for hitting that $50 threshold. But they have some of the most competitive shipping rates around for international shipping, so you can still get part of that great deal. So if you have a moment, check out InStockTrades.com. As always, they have their deals of the week. This week, some of their featured deals that they have for 50% off is Batman hardcover volume 10 epilogue, 50% off, only $11.49. They have the Marvel Masterworks Amazing Spider-Man hardcover volume 18, 50% off, $37.50. They have the Superman Golden Age Omnibus, 50% off, $37.50 as well. They have the Unwritten Deluxe Hardcover Book 1, 50% off, only $14.99. And last but not least, they have the Batman and Robin Adventures trade paperback. And this is volume 1, trade paperback, 50% off, only $9.99. So they really have some good featured deals for the week. You definitely want to check them out. Let them know if you do check them out that you heard about them here first on the Comic Book Savant. Now, with all that out of the way, let's talk about some Star Wars in Rouge One. Rouge One, a Star Wars story, is a very monumental film in the Star Wars franchise because it is the first non-saga film. Non-episode film is what they're calling the anthology movies. But it's kind of funny, even though technically it's not considered a saga film, it really is, because, this whole movie is based on a story that's in the opening crawl for A New Hope, about the plans for the Death Star being stolen by rebel spies. That little text in the opening crawl of the very first movie is what this movie is based on. But they call it an anthology movie and a non-saga movie, but it is because it ties directly to the saga. But okay, that's just their terminology for it. This movie is directed by Gareth Edwards. Writers are Chris Wentz, Tony Gilroy, John Knoll, and Gary Whitta. The breakdown is as follows. The rebellion makes a risky move to steal the plans to the Death Star, setting up the epic saga to follow. So basically, it's the primer for everything we know about Star Wars, basically, at this point. The cast is as follows. We have Felicity Jones as Jyn Erso. We have Mads Mikkelsen as Galen Erso. Ben Mendelsohn as Director Orson Krennic. We have Riz Ahmed as Bodhi Rook. We have Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma. Alan Tudyk as K2SO. We have Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera. Diego Luna as Captain Cassian Andor. Donnie Yen as Chirrut Amin. Wen Jiang as Baze Malbus. And Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa. This movie, I had two different experiences. You know, with me and my wife goes to all these movies, even though she's not necessarily a comics head or a Star Wars head. Like, she's kind of become those things over the time that we've been married. And I was, I've been getting more and more into the Star Wars lore since Disney acquired it with the Marvel comics. I've been really diving into those and reading and following most of those. With some of the recent releases of the books, they had a book that was released maybe a month or 3 weeks before the movie hit. It was called Catalyst. That is basically a prequel to this movie that I listen to on audiobooks through audible.com. Not a sponsor, but just shouting them out because they're a good service. That was kind of a primer for this. So I've gotten into all these other things. So I have to preface this review by saying you fall into two camps. You fall in if you're like one of those really hardcore fans that you've read the book going in. You're going to get a little bit more out of the movie per se for someone that hasn't. So I'm going to throw all these things in when I'm talking about the movie. I was kind of on the fence when I first heard Gareth Edwards was the director of the film. I was one of the people that really didn't care for Godzilla. But from everything that I saw leading up, as far as the trailers that were released, I wanted to see something different from Star Wars because it's always called Star Wars. So what reassured me was, that he wanted to make a war movie. He wanted to put the war back into Star Wars. And that intrigued me, and it seemed like we were getting that tone from everything that we were shown in the trailers leading up to the movie. And it did follow through with that, which was awesome because it was something different than I wanted from Star Wars, and he delivered on that in spades. Overall, this was a solid movie. Some certain choices were made as far as there were no opening crawl because they wanted to distinctly make this different from an episode or saga movie. I felt like for me, being someone that read the book, which I'm going to get to in a second, the opening crawl could have helped a lot of people to kind of give them a preface to understand a little bit more going into the movie. Pretty much if you read Catalyst, this movie starts maybe. It's hard to tell specifically time frame. It could be a few months or maybe a year or two from the book ends. It ends at a really good part. So, and Catalyst really sets up the world far as you get a real understanding of the inner workings and the power structure of the Empire. You really get a deep background and of the Ursos, which is very important to this story. And I'm going to say kind of because the book focuses a lot on as far as Jyn, Galen, and Lyra, which is Jyn's mother, which is seen in the very beginning flashback scene for maybe 2-3 minutes. Maybe she's not in the movie much, but she's a very integral character in the book. And I feel like too, the movie in the from the movie to the book to the trailers, you're given the impression that Felicity Jones is the star of this movie, and this is a Jen Erso movie. It is not. It's a rebellion movie, so it's kind of misleading because so much of the book, sets up the history of this family and all the sacrifices they made, and the book fleshes out director Krennic as well, extremely well. And I feel like there are some of the most underutilized characters in the movie. But you at least get their backstory and can understand motivations a lot better from the book going into the movie. I feel like you don't understand how important Mads Mikkelsen's character of Galen Erso really is. You don't understand the weight of it and the sacrifices he made unless you read Catalyst. You won't understand that backstory because they don't shed a lot of light on it at all. And they don't get a lot of screen time. And I thought Ben Mendelsohn he was very good in the movie, and he is so much this character. But from reading the book, he kind of gets so overshadowed by the inclusion of Tarkin in the movie, which has been a lot of controversy, and some people might have already heard that they had, a digital performance done of Peter Cushing, doing the role of Tarkin. He was in, I was pretty sure he was going to show up because he is instrumental in the book, and it's a whole backstory that's not even really discussed. It's little things that are shown that is tension between Krennic and Tarkin, but it goes a lot deeper, and it goes back to the book. That they're both fighting for that position of running the Death Star. And they do a lot of maneuvering and manipulation to take one another out that you don't get any full indication of, but you do know from a few scenes that it is tension between the two. But you don't get the rich backstory, and that's where Catalyst helps out in all these things. Now, Catalyst doesn't touch on the other members of the team and the mission that they go on, but again, it's just a preface of setting up mainly Jen's parents, because Jen is not born at the beginning of the book, but by the end of the book, she's about the age where the movie kicks off. So she becomes, she's more of a background character to the very end of the book. And the actual last chapter or so of the book actually ends with her narration of those chapters. So they're done specifically through her perspective, which I like that part. But getting into the bulk of the movie and things that I liked all the characters. I think the one or the biggest downside to the movie is I watched Star Wars movies for the grandeur and the cool special effects and all that, but what always attaches me to the series is the characters. After reading Catalyst and had 2 weeks or whatever to wait before the movie to come out, I felt such a connection to Krennic, even though he was a villain, to Galen, even though he wasn't shown much, or he wasn't revealed much in the trailers, and even in Jen, to see what changed or what happened beyond where the book ends, to see where her story lies. I was super invested in these characters. And, to be honest, out of the three characters, the only one from how they were presented in the movie that I really cared about was Galen, or when he was killed or when he died in the movie, it was the only death next to K2SO. They were the only two characters that I really felt some emotion towards their deaths, because it was more, again, it was less about the characters and more about the mission, and the characters were kind of just placeholders to move the mission along, and each person had their particular function to serve on this mission for the greater good. But it was kind of sad because it was really unique, different characters. I really enjoyed Riz Ahmed's Bodhi character. I really like Donnie Yen and Wen Jiang. I like the Chirrut and Baz. Their friendship seemed really real in the limited time, so they didn't have time to develop and flesh out the characters. Even with, Force Awakens, we got a chance, by the time of the end of the movie, I was really invested in Finn and really invested in Rey. I didn't get that here, and I know it's a big difference because you have a whole cast of characters here that you're going on this mission with, and then you have, other characters on the side that serve, importance as well. So you got to juggle all this plus tell this story and move it along. So it was a disconnect with the characters. But to me, like the standout characters was Galen, and I feel like for Galen it was for me because I read the book, and the book was so much about everything that he went through, how he was manipulated. He never wanted to serve the Empire. He ended up losing everything. He ended up losing his wife and, losing his daughter for a number of years and not being able to see her till she's holding him dying in her arms as an adult. So he lost 15 years with his daughter, and he lost more time being caught up in his research even after she was born. So he wasn't the best father. And to know his journey and the different mistakes he made from the book translating to the movie, it was very moving. And Mads Mikkelsen's portrayal of him was just awesome. I've always loved him from even the first movie I ever saw him in, which was Casino Royale as the villain. I've just always liked Mads Mikkelsen, and he and I like him more as a villain, but I really dug him as this scientist character. And again, like I said, the book just added so much to him, like where I really felt his death and felt sad, and it was touching to me. And I was hoping I was going to get the feels like that when we start seeing other main characters die, but I really didn't. And Alan Tudyk really knocked it out the box with the K2SO character. He was kind of stuck in there for the comedic relief, but I liked his snarky, sarcastic kind of humor. Kind of fits my own, and it was really good. I didn't feel at any point that he was a CGI character at all. Like how they did it, they've gotten that technology nailed down so well. And I did all the prep because I'm a nerd. Before I went to go see, Rogue One, I went back and I watched the original trilogy first. Then I went back and watched the prequels. Then I watched The Force Awakens. Did I read anything or watch anything else? I think that was it. Literally watching The Force Awakens the night before I went to go see Rogue One. And, and I go back and I look at the prequels with like Jar Jar and looking at the technology with Jar Jar, being that he was in so much in The Phantom Menace and, just used sparingly throughout the other movies, how dated and obvious that looks. And like I was never taken out from him being on screen and his performance. Now a lot of people have talked about when it comes to the whole CGI performance of the Tarkin character, at times you definitely could tell more than others that that was a CG character. It didn't take me out of the movie at all. I was just maybe surprised that he was in so much of the movie. I thought they could have got around it so he wasn't in as much. I was like as nearly as many scenes as he was in. I thought they could have, done it where he wasn't so front and center. But when you think about it, this movie leads directly into A New Hope. He had to be kind of a centralized character, so that was something that was unavoidable. That they took a risk and they did something different, and I feel like in any case it worked and it was rather effective. But again, from everything that we saw leading from the trailers were rather misleading because a lot of stuff that we saw in the trailers didn't make it into the movie. which then starts playing in the fact of, you know, this movie, it was a lot of reshoots that were talked about that took place. The whole inclusion of Tony Gilroy, said he came in and totally changed the whole end piece of the movie. Who knows? It was kind of jarring though because I remembered from the trailer. So when I came back, me and my wife was talking about it, you know, a line that she says, you know, I rebel, that never was in the movie. The whole thing when she's walking on the platform and a TIE fighter comes in front of her, that never shows up in the movie. You know, we saw scenes where she was running through a building and she had the drive like strapped to her back, or she running with it and then her running across the beach with it. I think that's the first or second trailer that they showed, and like Krennic walking on the water towards, you know, troopers. It was little scenes like that were quick cuts in that first teaser trailer or first official trailer that were shown that, you know, wasn't in the movie. So clearly the movie was changed because she was running with that drive and she never got outside of the building to the very, very end, and she was walking toward death at that point. So it was definitely clearly reshoots done to the movie. You know, will we ever know what the actual ending of the movie was, to what it was changed to? I don't think it overall affected the movie. I was just aware of it because, again, being such a fan and being like, after I read the book or listened to the book on Audible, you know, I did turn around later and then went back and looked at the trailers, because then I you know, got more information, knowing the things that I did from reading the book. You know, I wanted to look at them again before, you know, in comparing things and seeing like, oh, okay, I understand this a little bit better now, just to give me a little bit more context. Some of the other things that bothered me, the score of the movie was done by Michael Giacchino. He's done tons of scores. He's very popular in Hollywood. The original, I can't remember who the original composer was, but he walked off or left or was fired. And, you know, Michael Giacchino had like 4 to 5 weeks to do the score for this movie. It just doesn't fit for a Star Wars movie. You know, there's certain things where the John Williams score is so epic that it's hard. You know, they had highlights or notes of his tones, but it was it was a okay score, but it just, to me, it wasn't a Star Wars score. You know, when they showed the Death Star, you know, I wanted to hear the Imperial Death March, theme. We didn't get that, which is understandable because really that theme wasn't introduced to Empire Strikes Back. But it just would have been cool to hear it, because I was like just begging to hear it. And they had, you know, the Death Star had never looked so good as it did in this movie. And this is another thing too. This movie was very much about the rebellion and very much about the Death Star. We really got to understand the full awesomeness of the destructive nature of what the Death Star was through this movie, and it just looked so good. The visuals were just so stunning. This was a beautifully shot movie, most definitely. You know, and I feel like the biggest detriment to the movie was just not having the chance to become very emotionally attached to the main cast of characters. And I want to think about another movie kind of similar, because this is kind of like a Dirty Dozen, Magnificent Seven kind of movie, but this set in the Star Wars universe. And, you know, just seeing the Antoine Fuqua Magnificent Seven movie, you know, this summer, even in that short time, I was more attached to the different individual characters in that movie. So when their deaths happened, they were moving and you know, they were sad and they affected me, you know, as a viewer. I just didn't get that. Some of the deaths were really cool, but I didn't feel like I had gotten to know those characters as much as I might need it to for it to resonate. Like I said, the two deaths that resonated the most with me in the movie was Galen Erso's death and and K2SO were the two deaths that really were emotional to me, in the movie. Then we had, of course, the elephant in the room, Darth Vader. I want to preface this. Well, you shouldn't be listening to this if you haven't seen the movie yet, but if you are still chose to listen to it, don't expect to see a lot of Darth Vader. I felt like he could have been used a little bit more in the movie, but, in context, I think less is more with Darth Vader. So in hindsight, I think they used him, as much as they needed to. And that scene at the very end of the movie with Darth Vader is the Darth Vader I've wanted to see on film my whole life. So that alone is probably worth the price of admission into this movie alone. Is just that last scene with Darth Vader. Oh my God. Dark room, you just hear the breathing, and you just see that lightsaber light up, and just him go to town, just slaughtering people. Whoa. The action set pieces, the war stuff was so beautifully shot and down and dirty and drew you right into the action. Some of the best action scenes I would have to say in any, Star Wars movie as far as the war aspect of it. And like I said, earlier on in the review, I think Catalyst is not a requirement, but I think even now, even after you've seen the movie, if you're interested in more background and the setup of it, I can't recommend it highly enough. I think it will enhance your opinion of this movie. What I would do as far as rating the movie, I would say it's a date night rental. A date night rental on a 10-point scale for me ranges between a 8 and a 7. Like I said, I like this movie, don't love it. For me, I would say on a numerical scale, it's about a 7.25. Is not my, like I said, I don't love this movie, but I do like it a lot. Like the characters, like seeing the pre-saga world, and the world is so much expanded, and that's what Catalyst does too. You see the bigger universe, and that we don't get to see in the saga films because we're following a specific group of characters in their journey. We don't get to see the bigger picture and how big the universe is and how it affects other people. And people that are not Jedis. And I think that was a wonderful thing, too, that there was no Jedis in this movie, minus Vader, which is a Sith. It's just regular people standing up to fight against oppression. So that was another really, really strong thing about, this movie as well. Now, if I have to rank this against the other Star Wars movies going from, I'm going to go worst to best. For me, the worst Star Wars movie for me is Attack of the Clones, Episode 2. Next is Revenge of the Sith. Episode 1 of Phantom Menace just slightly edges that out. I can interswap those two back and forth. Return of the Jedi. Then comes Rogue One. Next is A New Hope. Then second on my list is The Force Awakens, and first, as always, and probably forever will be, Empire Strikes Back. For me, it's still my favorite Star Wars movie of all times. So Rogue One is, in my top 4, because it's such a good, and how it weaves into A New Hope. That integration is so seamless, which was another big concern. Like, this movie literally ends at the beginning of A New Hope. So you can watch Rogue One, go home, watch, Star Wars, and it flows right into it. And there's some great cameos, in it, which I think the biggest cameo that I really liked was the bar guy that starts to pick the fight with Luke in the bar on Tatooine. That's really cool that he had that small cameo where I think he bumps into Jen on Jedha. That was really cool. What other cameos? They had a scene with R2-D2 and C-3PO. Also the CGI Carrie Fisher at the end for Princess Leia, her getting the plans. Some people said I was very jarring with the CGI thing. Again, it didn't bother me, and it was kind of cool way to end the movie. But all in all, like I said, it's a really solid movie. It's not the greatest Star Wars movie of all times, I had to take time to really sit on it to think about my review and where it really stood for me. And that's just where it is. Again, I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I do like it, and I like it a lot. Now to talk about what we got going down the road, we still have, next year, this time, we're going to have the next saga film, which is, we don't know the title. We have Star Wars Episode 8 coming. Then it's supposed to be, and it's, people are now talking like maybe that they might push this to December, but actually, I want to say Han Solo is supposed to come out in June of 2018 is when it's set. Some are wondering, are they going to push that to December? Who knows? We do know that Star Wars Episode 9 is supposed to come in 2019, and then we have the third anthology film to be coming 2020. We don't know what that film is. At one point, it was supposed to be the Boba Fett movie that they were, what's his name? I forgot the director's name, the one that did Fantastic Four, that he was supposed to be doing before that whole mess happened and he dropped out, and production's kind of stalled, but they had done some pre-production. So are we still going to get that Boba Fett movie? What will that anthology, film be? Hopefully, maybe, this is the last, we're going into the holiday and there's only, less than 2 more weeks left in the year. Will we get a Star Wars trailer before year's end, or will we get one early 2017 for Episode 8, and officially get a title to the movie, and maybe come Star Wars Celebration this year, we might finally get an announcement of what the third anthology film will be. We do know that Star Wars Episode 9 is going in production sometime in 2017. I can't remember, and I don't know if the filming for Han Solo already started or if it's going to be starting early 2017. So these movies are coming. So, we're going to have a Star Wars movie at least every year. I think by 2020 beyond, it might be like a Marvel thing that we might actually get 2 Star Wars movies a year. We have to see. We do know that they're planning on doing a summit, I think they said early that first week in January, with all the writers and the creative team to see what their slate's going to be beyond what they have on the plate for 2020. And are they going to focus more on anthology movies and stop the saga movies at 9, or do they go right in and continue saga films, or do a hybrid of what they're doing now? So it's going to be interesting to see in the long run how it all shapes out when it comes to what comes next after this next slate. Will the Han Solo movie be just a one-off, or will it be a trilogy? Talks now that Han Solo thing might be a trilogy. That'll be interesting to see. I hope they might plan for it, but let us see what the first one is, and because it might not work. For Rogue One to be an experiment, it was pretty darn successful for them, and like I said, it was a very pleasant movie, and I like that it was so different, and they had the balls to go there. I mean, all your main characters died in this movie. That's kind of dark for Disney and Star Wars, and they did it, and it worked because it served the greater good of the movie. And what we knew, and none of those characters were around, far as we knew. And to have them live and try to shoehorn them in just might have been too much. So I really it put a different weight to it and a different spin that to this point no other Star Wars movie can claim. So it makes it unique on itself, and I appreciate that they did that. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to go out on a limb because it's so different from the other ones, and I think that's what makes it stand out, and that's what makes it good. Not great, but good. And that's really all I have to say about the movie. Like I said, some people might like it a little bit more. Some people I've heard didn't like the movie at all. Like I said, I think it's a solid addition to the Star Wars franchise. You know, I'll definitely get it as soon as it comes out on home video, add it to the collection. I would rewatch it again and again. Like I said, I did thoroughly enjoy the movie, but I don't think it's the greatest thing ever made. As always, you can reach me at the website comicbooksavant.com. I'm on Twitter at comicbooksavant, Instagram as well at comicbooksavant. Check out the website if you want to help support the show. Definitely check out the sponsors. If you want to contribute to the show, with links to do that if you want to directly help out there. If not, you can always help out by reviewing the show, sharing the show. Oh, also on YouTube, just do a search for Comic Book Savant on YouTube. It's only translations of the audio episodes that are released right now. Like I told you, I'm working on video content for next year to go up on the YouTube channel. So, you know, that's double work for me as I'm trying to get all that figured out. But that'll be coming in 2017. Finally got that up and running. So I'm still trying to figure out a lot about YouTube and video content. So it's a new challenge, but it's kind of reinvigorated my passion because it's another way for me to get content to you guys. So that'll be coming next year. Again, if you have a moment, leave a review on iTunes. That always helps get some more eyes. And, you know, just keep doing what you guys are doing. I see it in the numbers that you guys are helping me grow the show by just spreading word of mouth. If you can't contribute any other way, that's always the best way, is sharing and letting people know about the show. It means so much to me. I was just looking last night at the goals I set going into this year for the show, and I accomplished a lot of them, and that's based on your guys' help because I can't do it alone. So I definitely want to thank you guys for it. Should be an episode coming out next week. It just depends on how, you know, the holiday goes. I don't know if you guys want to hear from me next week or you're going to be too busy prepping for the end of the year. Who knows? More than likely, I do have something I can, you know, cover in an episode next week. So if, again, I don't get too caught up on the holidays, it'll definitely be an episode out next week. I might go ahead and record it early and just have it drop on like Monday for you guys. But definitely it'll be some content out. And after the new year, we're going to keep hitting the ball rolling like we have been. So I will see you guys soon. Enjoy your holidays and have a Merry Christmas. Take care.
And into lyrical wholeness. And I know this, and I know this. This I know, this I know.